Make content, get good at it, get comfortable in front of a camera, and keep doing it, because I think that's the way to activate better performance across the board.
Fransisco Wiles, thank you for joining the Law Firm Brand Builders podcast.
Thank you for having me, Al.
So as a paid media director for law firms across the country, what are most law firm ads doing wrong on social media?
Not filming enough content is what it comes down to. Most law firms are just not filming enough and testing enough.
And you think from the paid side as well, not just organic?
All the above. Even with larger law firms where they tend to have somebody dedicated to filming organic content, they do a pretty good job there. But as soon as it gets to like meta ads or even YouTube ads, it's just not enough filming, or they want it to like a certain production standard when it should be just rapid testing.
Just grabbing the phone sometime and
yes,
speaking to camera.
But they hate that. Most law firms and partners hate that. Even though often those are my best videos, and the smaller law firms that we work with can sometimes just have like a 45-second video in a parking garage, and that's the top performing ad across the board. And we can't always replicate that with our larger firms because they need like a whole production, and then it takes 3 months to get done.
Yep. When I was in house, we built out a lot of our social media. We were doing content very, very, very regularly, and had the ability to just play a lot. And I think that's very valuable. I think where a lot of law firms miss the mark with it is they don't know what to build, right? And then whatever they build, they want to make sure that from day one they're tracking it back to cases and all, and you should be. But there's also a learning curve, right? Especially if you're going to do some of it in house. There's a learning curve if no one's there to teach them, and if the person you're bringing in hasn't done it successfully in the past. And where I find a lot of law firms fall into is we'll bring someone internally, but it's not someone who's really done it to a certain level of success for another business, especially a law firm. And so they're also figuring things out and being held to a standard that necessarily doesn't make sense for them.
I see that all the time. So some of our law firms have like fractional CMOs, or they might have like a dedicated like director of marketing, and they might, typically it's from an SEO background. I don't know why that's always the case. Heavy SEO background versus paid. And then every time they've tried, they're filming content, getting things done, but they haven't successfully, made TV commercials or, successful meta ad before. And it's something I routinely see struggle with. Honestly, like the 20-year-old marketing managers they hire oftentimes can start doing better a lot faster than somebody with like a lot more marketing experience in terms of just raw video content, because they're willing to test and they're looking to see what's actually working well, but also not getting frustrated when they don't see performance right away. Whereas I see it happen constantly where things just get shut down. The first round of videos didn't work well. I'm not going to do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like there should be a heavy focus on organic social media?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't manage anything organic, but my top performing clients are ones that are already routinely filming. Without a doubt. They have some kind of frequency. They're comfortable with the process. They might have a dedicated filming day already. The ones that are filming organic content are usually ones that are going to start doing really well on Meta, because it's not new. It's not like pulling teeth. They're not scared to get in front of a camera. It is, I think, a really good indicator that their ads are going to go well. Not only that, you look alive when people are looking at you online or going through your profile as soon as you start running ads. And if you look like a real law firm that isn't just posting like Canva overlay text images every 2 weeks, and they get to see your law firm and how you interact, I think that's also a really good way to find local clients. If you're getting some engagement, or people in your community are seeing it. There's this particular lawyer in Boston. I think his name's Joe. He makes rap videos for all of his.
I've seen this guy. I've seen him.
Yeah, call Joe. I have DM'd him on Instagram saying I would run his ads for free if I can just test out all the videos that are going viral.
Yeah.
And it works. He's getting
they're entertainment.
Millions of views and engagement. And I imagine he's solo, because like when I click to his website, it is just like, here's a form and some website builder. I imagine he's crushing it right now just by filming content and being interesting. And that's who he is. And I'm sure a lot of people are very happy to work with him after they see his Instagram or come across him online.
Yeah, it's funny because what he's doing, kind of the shtick, so to speak, it works because it's entertaining, it's unexpected. There's definitely people out there that aren't going to hire him because of the shtick, right? Because of that, they don't want to work with someone like. But there's also people that will absolutely hire you because of it, and he's increasing his visibility across as many people as possible. And I have conversations with our law firms when they're thinking about being a little more intentional about social media, having us help them with social media, both on the organic side and the paid side. And the way I distill it down to a lot of them, because the guy you just talked about there, that is an exception, right?
Yeah.
like
Most law firms are not filming content that good.
We probably can't create that for him. Like initially, right? Like he has to have that fortitude, that idea, that personality to want to go down that. And then we can finesse it into the right direction and get the good videos and run the ad campaigns. But most law firms aren't like that and don't have someone that's going to do that. And a lot of them don't want to be perceived like that as well.
No, absolutely not. It takes a personality. Like another couple come to mind are CEO lawyer. That's definitely personality. Mm-hmm. Miami Lawyer Daddy. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram.
I don't think I've seen that one.
His name is Miami Lawyer Daddy, and just let that sink in for what you kind of think he looks like and how he interacts. I don't know. It has to be a personality. I don't think most lawyers are going to want to do that, let alone let somebody go crazy with those ideas.
An alternative to it for law firms, especially personal injury law firms, and I have this conversation with many of our clients, is we can sit down and do just good conversational prompts.
Yeah.
Find ways to have good text hooks and make the story interesting. Like, we're prompting you to talk about your most interesting case, right? And you let the attorney roll. You give them some prompt guidance. You get that, and you turn that into multiple videos, and you do a bunch of prompting, and you get that going, and you start posting every day. And they're pretty easy to make. They don't scare the attorney because they're sitting there. They're just sitting there talking about things they know, knowing that the edit is what's going to bring it together. And even the worst of those, when you publish it across 5 platforms, you're probably looking at minimum a couple thousand views,
probably
on the worst performing ones. And then in between those, you also get ones that hit harder, ones that hit better. And that's free views, right? And that's free. There's more at bats. And the more you do it, the more you also realize what you like talking about, the more you realize what's resonating better, and you get better on camera. You start doing other things that are maybe a little more interesting. But, by the way, we can also take those best ones and run them as, if we're trying just for brand building, running ads, engagement ads that are still going to bring us some leads, and then supplement that with some intentionally made lead gen ads, both video and graphic based, static based, to generate clients for you. And it varies by practice area. And this is where I want to get your kind of insight here. When we talk about social media, are there certain practice areas that you feel like it works best for?
I mean, it's really fierce. The competition is fierce, and it's hard to jumpstart accounts without a minimum budget. But general personal injury, car accidents, expensive to get started. I don't know what your guys' minimums are, but ours is at minimum of 10 grand a month to get started. We really like to be at 15 to 20, and that's a high barrier to entry for, most solos. And then I feel like slip and fall, nobody wants, but man, can you generate so many cases cheaply for it? Nobody wants it though.
If you say the word slip and fall in an ad, you're getting calls. And so when I do find the law firm that wants them, I love just putting the pedal to the metal on those and hitting them hard. Now, in that space, they don't want them because you got to go through a lot of them to get the ones you really want.
Yeah.
But if you have the systems really in place, you're going to make money because you're going to get them for a fraction of the cost of the MVA ones.
Half the cost, I find, most of the time, or like a third. Like in Florida, I've seen like $500 to $750 sometimes at a larger scale of spend, all the way to like $1,500, but it really doesn't get higher than that, I've found, in most states. But man, every time I talk about, do you want cheap premise liability or slip and fall cases? The answer is no, I want car accidents. And then if they do take slip and fall, it quickly changes. How do I get more car accidents? How do I get more MVA cases? That never, I've never had a single client want to scale up slip and fall.
One interesting way to get more MVA is if you can easily get the slip and fall cases in the door and you get a large number of them, you now have a larger client pool to send you referrals for MVA cases. You have those clients that when they get in a wreck, you should be training them that even though they came to you for a slip and fall, in the future, if they get in a wreck, a loved one gets in a wreck, anybody, they should be contacting that law firm, right? And that's where I see a huge advantage. That's hard for me to
justify selling them direct response meta ads where I need direct attribution. And if they even have a good like referral program to get people to even do that in the first place. So it would be a long haul stretch for me. Like a really long haul stretch.
Well, it depends on where in the journey with that client you are, the conversations you're having. But if I'm talking to a client who intentionally was like, yeah, let's get slip and fall. And then 3 months later, it's working and they're getting slip and fall. They're like, okay, how do I get more MVA? I'm going to tell you how to get more MVA, and we're going to run MVA campaigns, but I'm also going to dive into the strategy of what are you doing with your current client base that is an MVA to make sure that they're coming to you when that happens. Because the larger your client base over time, the more of the good cases you're going to get. And that's why I coach a lot of law firms in that, like, don't turn away the minimum policy limit case just because you know that the ROI on it isn't going to be as much as the ROI on a $75,000 case, a six-figure case. Still take that case if you could do good work, if you could still get the client a positive outcome, and you could still make an impact on their life.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot more of those cases available than the other ones. And those people are going to drive the six-figure cases to you over time.
I fully agree. Fortunately, me telling that to a client so I can get cheaper signed cases because they have a really strict criteria and minimums that they want is a little bit of a long shot. I'm forgetting the name of the book. I mentioned it in intake form for this. The Mike Morse's book, Fireproof.
Oh, Fireproof. Yeah.
And I haven't finished reading it, but I really resonate with a lot of what he says, how he got started and grew his firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of attorneys are not hungry enough to work those cases. Maybe like, some of the larger firms I work with just ingest them in such high volume. But like some of these smaller attorneys I work with, I feel like are not hungry enough. And they keep saying those are terrible, terrible cases to work and don't want them. So I feel very strongly about that because I'm like, what about this? Is signed it. And they're like, yeah, it was terrible. There's nothing to make there. And I'm just like,
I'm very empathetic to that when it comes to the law firms and the owners, because it is one thing to say it, but at the same time, certain sizes have limited resources, and work in those cases, especially if it's like the owner, right? It takes away from a lot of the other things that he probably has to do, right? And so if you really want to work it, you got to build systems, you got to get more people in place. That in itself early on is going to eat into your revenue. And so you're not going to be as profitable early on with the hopes that you're going to be more profitable later.
Right.
So it's definitely a fine balance to walk with it. I have not run into one law firm that decided to take that strategy that regretted it in the future, right? When they were
that makes sense.
3 times, 5 times, 7 times bigger all of a sudden. But they had to hire.
Like AI is probably going to solve that for these larger firms to a degree. I don't know, what like legal AI use you, if at all, your firm that you worked in-house in was using, or your own clients. I know like some of my smaller solos are getting pretty darn efficient for like speeding up some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer, having more resources available for smaller cases. At least that's what I think.
I think the best methods in that space with the integrations of AI, it looks different from firm to firm and how they're structured and how they can utilize it. But definitely making it do the work that anybody can do, like that part of it, that speeds up a lot of the process, right? And the lawyer still has to be a lawyer. The lawyer still needs to do certain things, right? But I think that's extremely helpful. I want to pick your brain though on a little bit more on social media. And Like when you're working with a client, whether it's personal injury, work injury, mass tort, employment, any practice area, and you're going forward with a paid social media strategy, what's kind of like your ideal build out in terms of the type of creative they have and the type of campaigns that they're running?
So my process is fairly straightforward. I would say 95% of all our creative is video at this point. Statics are supplemental. They do not scale, but they do occasionally get like, assigned cases depending on the practice area. So for example, we work with a large law firm in Florida. I would say probably 10% of their sign come from statics. It's a nice addition. They're usually cheap. And a lot of it is around classic clients holding check or testimonial videos for clients. So it's a really good supplemental creative type. But in terms of getting any campaign off the ground for any practice area, it's video. And typically, it's the same kind of story-based ads that you were mentioning earlier. It's, I've seen X and this is, how we handle it. And, if you're facing something similar, reach out to us. And those kind of story-based ads drive almost all of our performance. And it's something that any attorney can do in volume. And the occasional cheesy stuff, if a client will do it, like having a hood of a car open, B-roll and some text over it, things like that. Or like, I don't know, something less serious or more informational. But 90% of it is pretty story-driven video creative, overwhelmingly. And we run a very simple structure in terms of how that's deployed. Almost all of our clients have just one campaign. And depending on the ad spend in X, Y, and Z, like we typically only create like a bunch of different campaigns if you have different practice areas or if you're targeting another state. We do statewide targeting. So it's because we are pretty much direct response. Our promise to our clients is getting signed cases through Meta. So we are not getting credit for kind of lift. So we have one client where we're getting credit for lift on a certain DMA where we started it. It spends like 10 to 15 grand a month. And they said the baseline after our ads were running after a few months, their baseline assigned cases started rising. We have only one client who's been able to measure that. So statewide targeting is absolute minimum for us. And we run CVO campaigns if we're getting into the weeds of it. And we launch new creative in their own ad sets. And we pretty much let Meta decide what's going to be a winner. And we'll, with enough budget, we'll force minimum ad spend of the cost per lead a day for like 7 days to see. And then if it doesn't work, remove it. It'll stop spending. If it works, it'll spend more. So fairly simple structure that's very much creative led. And then to kind of tie in that performance aspect of it for kind of meta ads is we got to connect the CRM. We have not seen a consistent performing meta account until we started connecting every single one of our law firms CRMs, whether that's Litify or Lead Docket or Lawmatics. I don't like Clio. I never want to work with that again. Don't suggest Clio. It's awful for marketing. But connecting it and reporting back every lead stage back to Meta has been the biggest difference for performance. Because now when I open up Meta ads, I can see down to the ad level leads, if they made contact, turn downs, retainer sent, signed, kept, whatever their lead stages are, we see it down to the ad level, which has made a big difference.
Do you have trouble with some of your clients getting that to happen, getting them to make sure it gets all connected and the process is in place where it's sending back the appropriate data that really helps it?
Yes. Recently we had to connect Monday.com. It's the only law firm I've ever worked with that's using Monday for their intake and kind of case management. And that was it's taken typically like 2 to 3 weeks to onboard and get connected, meet the team members, get access to things. It's taken almost a month and some change. Working with their head of IT, their marketing person. I'm sure you've seen it no matter the size of the law firm. Access is all over the place typically. Unless they're, I would say, a lot more established and bigger law firm, and then they have like people who know what they're doing for everything. But in this case, I've been working with their like CTO to figure out how to connect Monday to dump everything back. It's a lot of work, but it's the baseline minimum for performance for us. It truly makes a world of difference once you do that for every single client. You make that like the minimum for your process. Because how do you make better ads if you don't know what's signing in the first place? Because I can see now ads that generate a lot of lead flow, but almost always have a very high cost per signed or just a ridiculous amount of turn down to signed. And we turn those ads off.
Yeah. Do you, when you said the ones that generate a lot of leads, but maybe not a lot of cases, do you find that there is a common thread that you can see and helps you learn in the creation of the ads? Because when I hear that, I go, it was probably an ad that unintentionally was slightly more generic than it should have been. And so it led to more leads, but not the ones we necessarily wanted.
Yeah. So, and again, we've played around over like the last 6 months, a lot of our initial qualifying questions for intake, especially for general personal injury and car accidents. We used to have like a more general kind of form that allowed people to select anything like, let's say, premise or workers' comp or something like that versus just MVA focused questions. And what we learned is that some of our ads were just generating an obscene amount of slip and fall over car accidents, which kind of, as we rapidly scaled some campaigns, shot ourselves in the foot because we started flip flopping between premise, and car accidents. And at a larger spend, like 50 to 80 grand a month, week over week, the client was getting really upset with the wildly different performance and cases they were signing. So yes, and it tends to be the generic. And then the front end form was also a little too generic and open versus being very focused.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that speaks to the importance of connecting back that data from the CRM to Meta, to Google, to anywhere else. Because if you're judging, if it's basing off of the leads, it's going to optimize towards whatever is performing more, right? In this case, unintentionally slip and fall. But if they're feeding back that case data, hopefully it's correcting itself each and every time and still going more for those intentional MVA cases or more catastrophic personal injury cases as opposed to the slip and falls.
That's something we haven't figured out how to do better reporting on for our clients is like more catastrophic cases coming back in a different way. Because usually that's not marked with the lead statuses and like Litify or lead docket specifically. That's probably the next steps, but I don't think most of our accounts are big enough to really start focusing on that yet. When the goal is to start getting Meta to drive sign cases, because I don't know if you've kind of seen this, but a lot of law firms that spend a lot of money buying cases or leads, there's still a lot of them that are not successfully running Meta ads themselves, which is really surprising. The more this and the more we get on sales calls, those can be nightmare clients because like they expect you to hit performance metrics right away, but a lot of them don't have successful Meta ads, or they're not measuring their success well compared to the $200,000 they're spending on cases every month.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had clients where we've implemented large scale Meta ad campaigns, some nationally, some more regionally, and they were buying leads as well from those areas. And they came back and told us, once it got lifted off, and once they started really seeing things come in the door, it was coming in cheaper under their own brand. It's like, yeah, that's our goal. I wanted to come in cheaper under your own brand because I want you to have the brand lift, but I also want you to actually generate the cases for you. And so that was kind of an interesting case study in that, because historically the firm had always bought a lot of leads, and I bought a lot of leads whenever I was in house. We did every aspect of marketing,
and I understand it, like, because at the end of the day, when you're buying cases and leads, they're running ads that you will never be able to run and hit a certain audience that you're never going to really get in front of. Like the biggest kind of one right now are all the AI ads, like characters like Pixar, fruit, and everything like that.
Yeah.
A single law firm is going to approve any of those ads that I'm working with right now. But like that's going to hit a certain demographic of people that are not going to watch a generic lawyer ad that's boring. So
the other aspect of it, like perspective I had, where we wanted to be the biggest, the best, and grow up and to the right continuously. And it was when I'm running, say, Google ads, I'm seeing the lead sellers in there more often than I'm seeing my local competition. So it was
really,
well, if I partner with them, then I have my ad, I have their ad, I have my LSA, my SEO is doing great, and all of this is combining together. It's like I almost have full real estate for all this bottom of the funnel stuff if I'm also buying the leads, right? That means I'm doing it I'm kind of double dipping, right? And paying a little bit of premium to make sure that I'm backfilling with the ones that maybe wouldn't have hired us. So I do think it has its place. What I don't like are the ones that are unethical, right? The ones that are a little snake oil, the ones that I've actively seen basically take money from people I know and disappear, right? I've seen ones that get in trouble, close down shop, and just open up another business. Those are the ones that give the whole legal marketing, a bad name. It's very visible, but a well curated plan, everything has its place. But yeah, it's interesting that you just kind of speak to that, because I do think that when a law firm runs it themselves, they have an opportunity to either perform even better than the ones that they're buying, or supplement it. And now they're getting two flows of it in, and if the profitability makes sense, then keep on going with it.
Absolutely. And like a clear example I'm seeing for a client right now, our baseline kept our true cost per signed, their main goal is between $5,000 to $6,000, and they're paying right above with the cases that they're buying from sellers. And it's taken a long time for us to get everything really dialed in, but this month we're starting to see their cost per sign be front end cost per sign be sub $2,000. And then we see the drop rate increase over a month or two. And it's as we scale up the account and it's getting better on our front end intake, our ads are getting better. We're seeing that rate drop. So last month we were at 35%. And that'll probably creep up to 40, 45%. But now we're well under what they're seeing from what they're buying. And they buy a lot. So it takes time. It's hard. It takes a lot of focus. We almost lost that client because it took a while to build it up and get the creative done to get there. And we had some months where costs jumped through the roof as we were figuring it out and trying to scale up the account. We scaled a little bit too rapidly, and that ended up breaking a lot of things. So, but the long term is you have consistent lead gen and case generation that you own. And that can scale up as you get better at it, because all these other guys are doing, they're middlemen for typically what I see is Meta and YouTube ads, which a lot of law firms struggle with a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why it works so well for them, right? Because I think a lot of law firms struggle with doing those things themselves. And so it's an open area to go ahead and do it for the lead sellers. I think a lot of law firms invest heavily in Google ads, obviously broadcast TV, billboards, and a lot of other things where it would be hard to try to jump into those in the same manner as compared to Meta or compared to YouTube.
Right. And again, they're also not willing to test the same kind of creative as these case sellers are doing as well.
Yeah. I think as a law firm, you want to know what creative's out there, generating those leads for you that are being sold back, right? Because things are getting tighter and tighter. Things are being looked at more and more. And you would hate to be the law firm that is used to make an example of, if it ever does go down that route.
It's coming. We're going to see a news story here soon about one of these law firms that are buying a obscene amount of leads, and it ends up, I think you commented on the video I posted recently about the specific landing page I saw where every single click was $100,000 on the intake form, $200,000, all the way up to $1 million once you answer all of your questions correctly on what your estimated case value is. I think it's coming. It's more and more states are cracking down on it. I haven't seen any kind of news on anybody's hands getting slapped yet or fines, but it has to be coming soon because the industry is so competitive. Because I keep my ear to the ground on lead sellers. I participate in those groups. I see what these guys are doing. And you'd be surprised at the amount of 24-year-old just got into Meta ads being hyper aggressive there is with some money that are pretty good at running Meta ads and making ads.
Yeah.
And it's fiercely competitive, and it's just getting even more so on all platforms. And then you have private equity money coming in and purchasing up some firms, or other larger firms doing the same and injecting a lot of cash. So it's just going to get more expensive. And it's going to get more aggressive.
Yeah, that's one thing I do talk about a lot about is if you love your cost per if you hate your cost per acquisition right now, you're going to hate it more with each each additional year, right? But it speaks to the importance of looking at the entire firm as a full system, right? And what can you do to increase your case values? What can you do to get your clients more money? Right? Because if you can increase your average case value, then you can swallow some of that additional cost per acquisition. And a matter of fact, if you're doing so good on your case values, you can objectively spend more on the cost per acquisition and make it harder for your competition because they're trying to stay within certain normalizations for and what makes sense to them. A final thing, because I know we only have so much time. You talked about a good bit about creative and the video creative, all that. Do you go and help the firms make the creative?
We are starting to, because a lot of the firms we work with, you'd be surprised at how many firms hire us, refuse to film anything, and pay us for months to only deliver 5 videos. We keep sending scripts. We email them. We call them almost every single day. I'm not even kidding. This is a big reoccurring problem. And they will film 5 videos and then get upset when those 5 videos don't hit off the bat, or they were so uncomfortable in front of the camera. It's just like, they didn't turn out well, even with scripts that we know work pretty well. So yes, we are starting to offer it. We have our team will fly out and we will shoot anywhere from, I don't know, I think our goal is 90 days worth of video.
Yeah.
So our goal is to have at least 50 videos to get filmed, and anywhere from 1 to 3 days, depending on the law firm and if they have multiple people to film X, Y, and Z. But yes, that is something we're starting to offer and really push, because it is absolutely necessary.
It's hard without going there, right? Because you're not in control of the creative, you're not in control of the execution of it, unless there's someone there that's working with you as a partner. And we kind of do a similar thing where when we go to a client for social media video, we're planning to get as much as possible, right? At least 3 months worth of content we can push out and ads that we can run for a very long time, and obviously changing them based off of performance. But even with that, you can end up editing more ads out of it just from the content you got there. And then the firms that work best are the ones that also have someone internally who is available to get content when you have an idea, when you need it. One of the firms that does the best that we work with, they're filming pretty much every other week. They're doing podcasts, and we'll send them scripts and tell them exactly how we want it. They'll shoot them. They'll send them over to us. We'll do all the editing and the cleaning up, all that, because we have certain ideas for the ad campaigns, because we see something working in a different way than what was working 2 months ago. But it's definitely more advantageous to kind of be there. So it's like, I'm gonna hold your hand for 4 hours today, right? and then fly back home.
Because then you can also give pushback when they start injecting things on the script. Oh my gosh, you probably deal with this all the time. Working with a law firm, sent them over scripts that I know work well. 150% know that these work if they're filmed with a confident person. They started every script with, "Hi, my name is X, Y, and Z about so-and-so law firm." And I'm like, you just wasted all this time. Now we have to do an awkward cut on all these videos. And guess what? They wanted to run those videos, $800 cost per lead. As soon as we made that edit, it was still a little awkward intro. It cut down to like $200, like overnight.
Yeah, because if they do that, they're not leading with the hook that you want them to lead with, right? And you're having to, because I'm imagining if they start it like that, they also probably aren't following the hook and script that you put together. So then you're having to go in the edit and try to figure out, okay, now what's the new best place for me to start this? But then, like you said, sometimes ultimately it's the client's product, right?
Yes. And they want to
say, if they say, no, I'm not going to authorize this until it has the intro that I want at the beginning of it, you can say everything you want. But at the end of the day, they're in charge, right? But we can coach and guide them. Usually I don't run into many issues when it comes to that. It's like, well, no, we really need to do it like this, and here's why. But every now and then, they have a certain way of how they like to see something. And we have to be cognizant of that and just let them know, hey, I think it's doing this to your cost per acquisition.
I don't even say I think. I find just being very direct at this point being the answer. And one thing I think a lot of law firms and then like legal agencies kind of need to take a page from are like direct to consumer e-commerce and how they like run ads in their strategy across the board. I think a lot of law firms need a dedicated creative strategist for all their ad channels and content that they film. And because like a direct-to-consumer e-commerce business has like a creative agency, they have a creative strategist, they have actors that they just pay based on performance with creative they film. So if they have one script or kind of video style that works really well, they give it to everybody and everybody makes more money based off that. And I think law firms could probably learn to kind of get in the habit of delivering that much creative more frequently and then paying based off it, because a law firm can make exponentially more money on the right signed case than, $100 shopping cart.
Yep.
Right.
And there's definitely creative lessons to learn from other areas. And then on the same token, there's always things to keep in mind with the creative or the execution of something. This is where I beat my head against the wall with Google, right? Because Google always has these recommendations, and Google looks at things through an e-commerce lens. And when you're talking personal injury law, it couldn't be anything further from it, right? And so 90% of the recommendations they come with, it's just like, no, like we're not doing that, right? It's going to ruin everything that we're
Performance Max with all the image optimization and YouTube ads on. What do you mean? You're going to get cheaper leads, even though they're like thousands of random spam form fills.
You need to turn on AI Max because you're throttling the amount of people you can serve to. But you turn on AI Max and you show up for State Farm phone number.
Or you start showing up for lawyer near me, and who knows what those people are looking for.
100%, man. It's usually when Google has a recommendation, I'm like, okay, we should do the opposite.
I'd be curious to get your take on Google Ads. Do you guys have like a baseline like recommendation on ad spend for personal injury at this point?
For personal injury, I don't want to see anything below $10,000 a month for sure. And when you say personal injury, I assume you're talking more motor vehicle accidents.
Either or. Personal injury is like the lower barrier to entry, because like I know a certain portion of personal injury learning researchers are going to include car accidents.
Yeah,
and also everything else, because all the advertising is mostly for car accidents. So I know there's a good segment of car accidents in there.
Yeah. So I like to start at least that much, but sometimes, it depends on where are you located, how big of a target are we going after, how competitive is that market, and then also layering in the expectation where it's, hey, your budget's 10,000, right? If you're expecting 10 cases from this, then we're not the right people for you.
Find me who's going to find 10 cases at 10 grand.
For MVA, right? But if they come and tell me that they want workers' compensation or general injury or employment law and something, because we work with law firms in many different practice areas, and we ran one very successful social media campaign recently that also layered in some Google in there for the people that were smart enough to know to search for a lawyer, but it was very little, right? Yeah. Where we ended up getting the cases for $300 for the case, but it was the type of event that works well for an MVA. If I get you 2 cases off of $10,000, that didn't fail.
Yeah,
and we might have a month where you get 4 cases, right? And over time it balances out. And so I think a lot of it's client education and making sure they know.
And that's kind of like what we've struggled with Google Ads is the wild variations in like cost per sign performance on lower spend. And I typically find lower spend on Google Ads for like car accidents and generally personal injury, like less than $30,000 at this point. Like if you can't spend $1,000 a day in most markets, I see like an average cost per click in most major cities at $200 at this point.
Yeah, I can tell you, when I had the most success in Google Ads, it was when I was running a market domination play. I was looking at impression share, top of page rate, absolute top of page rate, click share, and then my actualized click share based off of the impression share, and then cross-referencing that and sending in the data from intake, right? And that's where I saw the most success, because ultimately it wasn't a cheap play, but it was a play where there was some markets where, according to those formulas, we were getting 4 out of every 5 clicks that we wanted to show up for.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
But it was also a very, very tight bottom of the funnel campaigns. And that also did a good job of helping keep people out of the auctions, right? They come in and they see like, God, I can't compete with that.
Oh yeah.
But you have to have a lot of money to do it.
That's what I find. Cause like at this point for car accidents, if you don't have what I consider an enterprise budget to get started at like $100,000 a month, how do you expect to dominate a like,
yeah.
like how do you
And so
absolutely dominate a land on the suburbs or
and
I
then
don't know,
layering even further into that, you know, back when I was in house, I would run truck campaigns because if someone was smart enough to mention an 18-wheeler or a truck or anything like that, I did not care what happened at intake. I wanted the shot at.
Yeah.
And so we aggressively bid on those. And there were months where it would spend a lot and not yield any case we could track back to it. Right. But then all of a sudden there was a month where there was 2 of them and both of them were very large cases. And so
that's the hard part that
you can't, how do you judge that on a month-to-month basis? It's very hard to. You need to judge it on a philosophical basis. Like, I believe that this is going to work over the long term and judge it over that. But it's hard to do that when, as you said, you don't have like the enterprise budgets. But if you do have the right expectation in mind and are agreed upon on how this is going to be judged with the client, and that client stays to that, I still think it's a perfectly fine place to generate cases at a good profit.
Right.
One thing, the personal injury
at the agency level, it's harder to get the buy-in for that. I think that's where having like in-house and having the right marketing leader in a position to do that, who understands like, hey, this is going to spend a lot of money, but like $1 million 18-wheeler truck accident case will pay for everything and more. Right. Yeah. So it's really hard when you're just like, all right, another month without leads.
Yeah.
Or like, we got a lead and, you know.
I did a multi-million-dollar push into a market, and within 4 months, we pulled out an amazing case that was going to pay for a large majority of the marketing spend in that market. And that was one that we were jumping into, right? So we were trying to figure out, like, it has to work for us to sustain it long term. But you get that one win and you go, okay, great. My marketing budget for the year is almost paid for with that one case. And that's the interesting bit of personal injury and motor vehicle accidents that you can't replicate in most industries, right? A sneaker's going to sell for the price and profitability that your sneakers sell for, period. And you have a perfect average. But the outliers in personal injury are always so crazy. And also in the personal injury space, I think firms, these law firm businesses, right? They got spoiled to great margin, right? When we talk back in the day when I could get a 5-6x margin on a $1,500 cost per case. And then now even being able to get like a 4x margin on a $5,000 cost per case, depending on the setup of the law firm. Like, that's a ton of profitability, especially when you compare it to e-commerce and other areas that sometimes if they can get 1.5, they're doing good.
Yeah. On front end, cold audiences. Yeah. 1.5 is amazing.
And then you got to look at the lifetime value thereafter, right? And once you have those measurements in place and the history in place, you're able to say, okay, yeah, this case cost me $5,000, but based off of my referral rates and the average cost per case of past client referrals, each one of those is actually worth 1.28 times more than what I got for that case.
Right.
And if you can nail that down, it helps you guide towards a budget that makes a little more sense because you're factoring in the future advantage of having that client on board now.
Are you guys able to measure that effectively for your clients, or is it a case-by-case basis?
Measuring it is one of those things where if someone's internal and running the shop well, you can do it. It's hard to scale that client by client from the agency side because they all operate differently, track differently, and you don't know truly how well they're reporting on it. Whereas if you have a law firm that just already reports on it, then you know that they have the system in place and that's how they're judging it, right? So you're able to more appropriately do that. So for me, it's more having the higher level philosophical conversation sometimes, unfortunately, and them understanding and buying into that theory because they they know it's true because they've seen it in action. They just haven't turned it into a data point yet.
Yeah, it's something we've been kind of thinking about more over here. How can we be more involved in those conversations to kind of start doing like a deeper analysis and kind of instilling those things? Because I'm sure you deal with this every day with the smaller clients, but like all these leads are terrible, and it turns out they take 6 hours to respond to a call, respond to a email, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's we take it as our responsibility to report on that, communicate to that with them, tell them the values that they missed out on. You know, what's the price of that phone call? What's that phone call worth? What's the cost of a review? What's a 1-star review worth? What's a 5-star review worth? And creating objective measures for those so that they can feel and understand the bleed of what's happening there. And I feel like the better you're able to define that, the better it works out. So, Fransisco, I don't, we're running up on time now. So I want to leave you with one last 60 seconds of, if there's anything, if a law firm owner came up to you and asked, what's the most important thing for me to know right now? What is it?
Make content, get good at it, get comfortable in front of a camera, and keep doing it until you're really good, because I think that's the way to activate better performance across the board.
Love it. Well, Fransisco, I appreciate everything. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.